now is the time to get passionate about phrasal verbs. Hey, what's up? How's it going? I'm Gabby Wallace, American English teacher and founder of Go Natural English, here to help you with your fluency in English. One key part of achieving the fluency that you want is to understand phrasal verbs. Oh my goodness, phrasal verbs. They are so frustrating, overwhelming, so annoying. Don't you just wish they would go away? I know. Phrasal verbs are a huge part of being able to understand and speak English like a native speaker. But I know that you and so many of my English students have trouble with them. So, 3 reasons why you don't understand phrasal verbs. I want to share these reasons with you, not to make you feel bad, but because when you understand the problem, then we can find the solution and we can improve together. So if that sounds good, then keep watching to the end because I'm going to suggest exactly how you can improve this problem. So, reason number 1 why you don't understand phrasal verbs. And wait, hang on, time out. Just a second. If you don't know what a phrasal verb is, let me tell you quickly. It's a verb with a preposition that together form something new. It's like when a verb and a preposition have a baby, and the baby just means something different in English. Right, okay, so for example, let's use get, because get is a very common verb used to create phrasal verbs. So if I say, usually, just get, I get it, I'm saying I understand it, or we can actually use get in a lot of different ways, so maybe this wasn't the easiest example. But when we add a preposition to the verb get, it creates a new meaning. Like, I get to teach you English means now that I have the opportunity to teach you English. So it's different than just get, right? I get to means I have the opportunity, which is a more advanced way of saying it. I don't want to say advanced. I don't like talking about different levels, but it's just a different way, more academic way to talk about having the opportunity. Anyway, okay, back to phrasal verbs. Why don't we understand phrasal verbs? Number 1, because you keep avoiding phrasal verbs, because they're hard, because you just don't want them to bother you anymore, so you don't really pay attention to them. You just hope they'll go away. You know how you have an itch sometimes and you're like, oh, should I go to the doctor? I don't know, maybe it'll just go away if I just don't pay attention to it. Well, that's kind of like phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are like the rash of English. They're everywhere. This is a horrible example, but they're everywhere. It's so gross. This example is so gross. And you can't ignore it because that rash is not gonna go away after a few days, because phrasal verbs are used even more often than more academic verbs. It's more likely that you'll hear a native English speaker say, I get to do this cool thing, instead of saying, I have the opportunity to do this cool thing. So we have to stop avoiding phrasal verbs. But that's a big reason why you don't understand them, because you're just hoping that they'll go away, so you don't focus on them, you don't listen for them. And it's not your fault, because in traditional English classes, your textbook, maybe your teacher, probably didn't have time to focus on the phrasal verbs, so they just skipped over them. They focused on the academic words, because a lot of people think that using bigger, longer academic vocabulary is better. Well, native speakers don't use academic vocabulary as often in everyday conversations. So if you actually want to understand what people are saying and you want to sound like you fit in, you have to learn phrasal verbs. You have to focus on them. Number 2, the second biggest reason why you're not understanding phrasal verbs is that when you are listening to English or you are in a conversation where you want to understand what people are saying, is when you hear a phrasal verb, you're just giving up if you don't understand it right away. You're not considering the context. You're not trying to guess from the context. You can probably make a really intelligent, informed guess when you consider what the person is probably trying to express. For example, if I say, I'm gonna pick up my friend from the gym at 6 p.m. In my car, you can probably guess because I said friend, it's a person, gym, a location, in my car, 6 p.m. Maybe I'm actually going to give a ride to my friend, which is I guess, more academic way of saying that. And the third biggest reason why you're not understanding phrasal verbs is that you're assuming that you understand the phrasal verb, but you're not checking to make sure that you are correct. You're pretending maybe that you understand, but you don't check to make sure you're correct. So when you hear someone use a phrasal verb, you could actually stop and ask to confirm. Oh, do you mean you're giving a ride to your friend? Oh, okay, got it. I'm learning English, thanks for your patience. So confirm, you can ask questions, it's okay. Most people want to help you. If you're shy, if you don't want to ask in the middle of a conversation, maybe you don't want to slow things down, maybe you're embarrassed, that's okay. Just make a mental note or maybe a note in your smartphone to check that phrasal verb when you have a moment to yourself. So let's talk about solutions. If you've been avoiding phrasal verbs, now is the time to get passionate about phrasal verbs and really focus on them. If you convince yourself, if you brainwash yourself a little bit and say, oh, I'm so passionate about phrasal verbs, they just light my life on fire. Yes, I want more phrasal verbs in my life. That's the best way for you to actually learn more about them because you're fooling yourself into thinking that they're enjoyable. I do this when I run. When I see a big hill, look, I don't like running, and especially I don't like running uphill, but I trick myself and I think, ooh, I love running up hills. Hills are great. I love hills so much and hills love me when I run up them. I know, I'm a weirdo, but it works. So get passionate and get focused about phrasal verbs because I want you to know they're gonna help you a lot. So there's a big benefit for you to this relationship between you and phrasal verbs. Next, when you're listening to English conversations or other materials, really listen for the phrasal verb and try guessing what it means. And then you can confirm what it means. So the third solution is don't just assume, but double check. Ask the question, check the phrasal verb maybe online. You can ask a friend when you have some time, but make sure that you're understanding. And then a bonus solution is start keeping a notebook, keep a journal of phrasal verbs, and then start to use them on your own because you're going to remember them when you listen to them a lot, when you repeat and review them a lot, and then especially when you start using them in your own sentences, that's when you're really going to get it. All right, so got it? Good. I'm glad that we had this time together for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on phrasal verbs, or if you want to ask about a specific phrasal verb, I would love to hear from you. And come to gonaturaleNglish.com to see this full lesson on the blog if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere else. Can't wait to see you there. Thanks so much. Mwah! Bye for now. Bye.